Well, thank you for joining, everybody. I'm really excited about today's webinar with Hannah Lowe. I'm the co-founder and CEO of MatchNice. Our whole mission is to inspire more giving by making social donation matching easy. And today's conversation is a really cool live case study with Hannah Lowe, president and co-founder of the L-CMD Research Foundation. We're going to walk through her journey with matching before, during, and after, which will be fun, especially Hannah, since you've got that experience of matching before MatchNice, during, and then after with a couple of different matches. So, Hannah, I'll just give you the floor to just give a quick hello and share just a little bit about the mission that you're leading at LCMD Research Foundation.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm Hannah Lowe. As Priya said, I'm the president and co-founder of the L-CMD Research Foundation, which is a nonprofit dedicated to urgently translating available scientific technologies into treatments and ultimately a cure for this rare form of muscular dystrophy called L-CMD. Sorry, that's a long mouthful.
Yeah. And Hannah, you're like a super mom, and it was so cool to be able to have you on the podcast. And I've got like a little slide with a QR code to get there after this. But before we go too deep, I think it's important for us to ground what we mean in this webinar when we're talking about matching. We're talking about social donation matching, which is where a nonprofit can empower and activate any individual, corporate sponsor, board member, major donor, mid-level donor, everyday giver to put up a match. So it's not just this boardroom executive kind of privilege. We are not talking about employer matching, which is I donate to a nonprofit and my employer matches my donation. So just important grounding. And I will just preface this. This isn't like a pitch about MatchNice or a demo. It's really very much about Hannah's experience and all of the insights that she's got. But one more slide to ground the conversation. So the tool is what I just want to show you really quick. And we're going to talk way more about the strategy. So MatchNice shows this matching banner for all of your donors to see. It shows what's active, what the progress is against that match, the matching multiple, what's remaining with a countdown to build positive urgency, who that matcher is as a spotlight, the number of gifts match, and this kind of social proof seal that like, hey, this is a legitimate match. So this is just kind of the background and context of what we're talking about today. So Hannah, back to you. When you launched LCMD Research Foundation, you started from nothing. And
Mhm.
obviously, your son, Austin, has that rare form of LCMD, which created a lot of urgency to take action and start this organization from the ground up. And when you launched, you ran a peer-to-peer campaign that raised close to or over $1 million. Like that kind of momentum is really rare. Can you take us back to that moment and what did that early energy feel like?
Absolutely. That early energy was frenetic, really, because we had just gotten this diagnosis for our son, and he was 6 months old when we got the diagnosis. And I guess it took us about 1 year to wrap our heads around it, do the legal framework to set up the nonprofit, start negotiations and contracts with different researchers to do scientific work, and then create our strategy for launching the foundation publicly and starting the fundraising. So it was March of 2021 when we did our initial fundraising push, peer to peer campaign. And I had a lot of help, I will say, from sort of advisors from other nonprofits who had done something similar before, giving me a lot of the framework on what to do, the how to do. And then I did have some sort of accountability people in my life who said, okay, this week, Hannah, this is your homework, like stay up late and do these things. So I think probably for the month of February, I was up late, every night, just like creating the collateral and the marketing and the messaging to be able to roll out the peer to peer and put it in action. And what we did was we really tapped every single person we could think of that we had known like our entire lives and asked them to be a part of it. And luckily for us, we have a very just wonderful, wonderful, kind group of friends and family from all of our 40 years of existence, who were willing to help us. So I think we had over 100 people actively going out and fundraising on our behalf. We kept, we said we're going to make our SMART goals. We had our timeline was just going to be 4 weeks. Our actual goal was $2 million by August of that year. And we said, okay, our peer-to-peer is going to be 4 weeks. We're going to do as much of the 2 million as we can. And then we don't want to burn these people out. So then we're going to continue on with other activities and fundraising. So yeah, we did a Zoom launch because of course it was during COVID. And, that probably worked to our favor a little bit because people were at home and on Zoom and not bogged down with other activities really. And I think we had about 150 people on a Zoom on a Friday night, and we told the story and we asked for the help, and we had so many people come out and help. And we had weekly check-ins, we had weekly activities and weekly, tasks for everybody to do. And we had all the materials anybody would need. So it was very easy for people to just send those emails, drop it in social media groups, whatever the case may be. And yeah, we raised, I think we got to $1 million during the summer. So I think by the time we finished the peer-to-peer, we were definitely at least 500, 600,000. And then by the summer, we had gotten to $1 million. So that was
Yeah.
exciting,
Yeah.
exhausting and exciting.
Yeah. And, one of the things that you had shared on our podcast episode, Hannah, was that, you kind of wish that you had gone harder, but I'd say you went pretty hard, like to get to those
Right.
outcomes. And I think where that was coming from is that when we first connected around the world of matching and MatchNice last summer, that challenge, you were at a different stage, right? Like it was way more about re-engagement and
Mm-hmm.
sustainability rather than capitalizing just on this one kind of immediate urgent push. And that urgency, of course, is not gone. But can you share a little bit about kind of where you were when you started looking at matching again with your partnership with MatchNice? And I know you had some
Yeah,
experiences with matching before, so that also might be some helpful context as we go into the first results from your first match.
sure. So I think last year when we connected about MatchNice, we had done about an annual in-person event since 2021, smallish type cocktail party type things. And, that's a lot of effort to put those events into place. And I think they're great and they're really fun and people always enjoy them. But yeah, as a team of like 1 to 2 to 3 people, it's a lot. So I think last year we were a little tired and looking for ways to keep the donors engaged without having to do a whole another event. And yes, like you said, we had experience with matches in the past when we had done the peer to peer. I think my sister and some of her college friends had pooled their funds and put up a match, which was great because then they could, branch out to even more of their college friends and rally those troops. We had some other donors, large donors, give like contingent type gifts in the past. And those had always done really well in terms of getting excitement back up from the donor base, especially on social media. So matching was something I was familiar with and something that I felt was a good catalyst to keep people excited.
Yeah, and were there any kind of cumbersome challenges or things that were difficult to wield with matching when you had run it previously?
Yeah, so in particular, one of the matches we had gotten was from a family foundation. And so I think, if you get matches from, say, a friend or a family or something like that, they're okay when you're like, okay, here's the general pool of funds. Okay, it's matched. Great. La di da. But when it's another foundation, when it's a family foundation, that's like reporting and they need to know every dollar and cent that you're claiming has come in that they're going to match. So, yes, it was just a lot of admin, right? Because you're having social media donations, which we all know are not always the easiest to track. Then, of course, donations through the website, fine. And then, of course, you have a whole group of people who are like, oh, I want to send you a check. Okay,
Yeah.
also lovely. I will take your check. But all these different areas and having to um, keep on top of it and keep refreshing and keep making sure you're keeping tabs correctly, right? And of course, people who are going to send you a check might say, hey, I'm going to send you a check. And so there's a timing as well, right? Okay, they're sending me $1,000, but I haven't actually received the $1,000 yet. Um, so, do I wait until I get the check in my hand? Do I put it up? All those sort of just extra questions, right? Extra things to think
Yeah,
about and manage, and um, not impossible, just extra.
totally. Yeah. And I know based on the research that we've done, like the number one challenge that nonprofits say they have with matching is finding a matcher. Two is
Mm,
around donor awareness. Like once you get the match, how do you communicate it? But the third and fourth actually are tied to capacity overhead and just resourcing of what it can take to run a match in a really compliant way, especially when you've got that accountability factor with something like a family foundation or a corporate partner or a major donor or even your mid-level donors. And, to go into the case study of your first match, moving from the tool into the outcome of your first match. This was really cool because you had this really strong established donor base. People really care about the mission. I think a unique challenge with medical research, especially in rare disease, is you don't have like a timeline to say we're going to get this outcome by this date. So it's just more progressive, iterative messaging, being able to still tie that impact in those dollars to impact. But it was so
mm-hmm.
cool to see you go from like kind of this lull in your fundraising to raising more in that period than you had in the previous 6 months. And, we saw that average gift size almost double. So would love to hear your experience with that. Like, how did you feel like going into it? What were you expecting? Like, what shifted in how you approached like the match once it went live?
Sure. I think that this being the first match that we did with MatchNice, I wasn't sure what to expect. It was just, let's try it and let's see what happens. And we pushed it out to our newsletter and on social media, linked back to the website. And I think because everything funnels through both our website and then through that to MatchNice, it became really seamless from our perspective in terms of the admin, right? All we have to do is the marketing, and y'all were so helpful with creating the messaging around that. Um, and to me, I really think of having a matching opportunity almost like a little mini event, really. It is something that we can um, push out and market on, and then also creates that excitement if you can get others to share it into their networks as well. And in the same way that I would market an in-person cocktail party that I'm selling tickets to, this is the thing right now. And like you said, it's good to tie it in with the work and what the funds can go towards. And like you said, with medical research, it is really tricky because, also $5,000. I mean, what can I say that's going to get me? Not much, to be honest. But we can break it down. And for instance, we are funding some postdocs, and we are funding their salaries, right? So we can say, okay, this is how much their salary is. Hey, if we can make a dent in that payment that we're going to make, that's great. And I think people can get on board with that too, even if it's not the same thing as other not-for-profits who could maybe say, oh, $5,000 is going to buy us 5 kits or 5 meals or 5 things. I think we can still tie it in a broader sense.
And you're clearly a masterful storyteller because you've done this on your own. And I really love the way that you were able to tie it back into the mission in a very thoughtful, clear way. And the like one of the cool outcomes, and I love the connection back to matching being kind of like an event, is that it's not just a fundraising opportunity. Of course, that's the center of it, but it also is a great way to re-engage and bring together your community of supporters to remind them that you're still there, that you're doing this important work, and that their contributions aren't done in like a transactional siloed space. So that community engagement was, something that I was really happy to see. I'm curious like how that felt for you after having this fundraising lull to then being able to kind of get this reinvigorated engagement.
Yes, it's exciting. And for this particular match, we, it was some of our board members who had come together. And that was really nice as well, because I think it reinvigorated them from the perspective of, yes, we have our quarterly meeting. Yes, we hear about the research. Yes, we hear about whatever Hannah's doing over there with her events or whatever. But this was a way to tie that all, up in a nice bow and have them feel like they're engaging in a meaningful way that isn't just making their annual donation or whatever. They are also then personally invested in asking their networks to contribute. And yeah, and I think especially on social media where there's such a give and take, it's a perfect place to try to drum up excitement and, ask people to share because that's an easy thing to do. Yeah. And so I think the emails are nice because I think you hit everybody, and everybody who cares is opening your emails. And then social media was really the place where you can get kind of creative and do a lot of different things and make the whole vibe fun and exciting. And I don't want to say urgent because I feel like sometimes we overuse urgent, but just of the moment, right? Like, oh, we're all doing this. There is a timeline. Like, you know, let's rally, let's do it. That sort of thing. That sort of feeling.
Yeah, I mean that's a big part of the psychology of what we're doing at MatchNice with the banner and the countdown, creating positive urgency, right? It gets everyone banded together around a clear target and timeline. And I think it's important in your messaging not to make it seem like a crisis, like we have to hit this
Right.
goal, right?
Absolutely.
Like it's again like inviting people to join the movement that you're building as a nonprofit. When looking at the match that you did previously versus this first board funded match, like what shifted for you in terms of the world of matching and things that you learned that carried over into the next match, which we'll talk about shortly.
Hmm. Um, the thing that pops into my head first is that I don't know if you see this in your data. I feel like the biggest slug of donations comes right when the match is about to expire, like in the last 24 hours. And you can be talking about it. If it's a 4 week match, you could be talking about it, talking about it, talking about it. And it's always sort of comes down to the wire. And there's always this a little bit of nerves like, oh my gosh, are we actually going to make it or not? Um, but I think if you could just keep messaging, like, we only have $500 left, we only have $200, that um, gets people excited. So I think the other takeaway, because I think in the past, right, we're sort of the recipients of somebody's decision to want to be a matcher. Whereas now that it's so easy, I can be more proactive in asking people to match, to become matchers. And in so doing, I think that there's a big opportunity to go big. Like I I truly believe, and maybe this is just because our community is so incredible, but I truly believe whatever dollar amount I'm going to put out there is going to get matched. So I'd rather ask for $100,000 match than $500. Like, because I think we can do it. I think people get so excited about the idea that their dollar is going to go further, that we'll always be able to do it. And something else I heard from people, which was really cool, was they were excited to put up to donate against a match, and then also, as you were saying earlier, submit that donation to their employer for a match. So like they're like, my money has just been tripled now.
That's incredible. Yeah, there's this huge compliment to employer matching and social matching, and we're actually doing some interesting exploration around that. One of the webinars we've got coming up with Salvatore De Taro, they're all about AI matching and identify
Mm,
AI analytics. One of the things that we're looking at, like who qualifies as a great person to ask for a match or donate, is people who do contribute through employer programs. So, and then
mm,
totally, we're seeing that in our data as well. Is there is a ramp up in donations the closer you get to that timeline. We're learning that, tighter time bound matches are more like create a little bit more of that urgency, but it really depends on like how big your goal is, right? Like if you have $100,000 match, that's probably not great for a flash 1 day match unless you're a really major enterprise organization. So there's this interesting kind of dynamic
mm-hmm,
between the amount as well as the timeline. Uh, and
definitely.
the awareness that comes with kind of building the hype around like this is live, this is what why it matters. But it's like I have my vehicle registration due, and of course like I know it's due, but I'm like not going to do it until the week before. So
Yeah,
yeah,
of
so
course.
appreciate that insight. And then going from a board funded match into this next case study from an organically sourced match. Tell us about what that was like. You just kind of logged in one day and saw one of your donors had put up a $5,000 match without you expecting it.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. That was wild. Yeah, it was a donor who had donated that sum sort of every December in the past. And I guess because, I have been talking in my various newsletters over and over again about how we have this partnership with MatchNice. It's super easy. If you go to our website, you can just click the button at the top and anybody can create a match in any amount. Um, yeah, I guess they saw it and they took us up on it, and that was pretty neat. So, um, and that was right at year end as well. So it really tied in perfectly with a year end push. It was no, extra lift on my part other than to add that into my year end messaging.
So cool. You're the first nonprofit we've had in our early kind of phase where you've been able to organically source a match. And like the outcomes are awesome to see how you raised above that initial goal that was created. And then just like this pay it forward ripple effect of generosity, where
Mm,
42% of the people that supported that campaign were either first time donors or hadn't given in the last 1.5+ years. uh,
Mhm.
Curious, like when you were looking at the data, like what stood out to you, and like as you're thinking about matching in the future, like how has this changed your perception about who can be a matcher?
Mm. Yeah. So because this person who put up this match had been a recurring donor in the past, that was not necessarily kind of a category of donor that was in my on my radar before to ask to be a matcher, because I guess in my mind they're in the category of recurring donor. Okay, wonderful. Like, I'm so happy that I can likely count on their donation. Um, but yeah, I think that may it actually makes a lot of sense, and it hadn't really occurred to me previously. So I do think that going forward, in looking for people to match, I will probably start there. Start with folks who are either annual recurring donors or monthly recurring donors, saying, "Hey, could you pool all your months and just do a singular annual donation as a match, something like that." Um, yeah.
Yeah, I mean that it's like the gold is in your existing donor database, right? Like your matchers
Mm-hmm.
are there. It's just being able to look at. And one of the things that we say to nonprofits who are figuring out how to find that matcher is, yeah, exactly what happened here organically was look at your mid-level donors, people who give every year a certain amount. And it's a really easy appeal to say, would you be willing to put that up as a match and help us multiply your giving for, and the impact that that creates. So such a cool little case study. Um, just to get ready to wrap, I know we've just got a couple of minutes left. Hannah, I do want to give you like such a huge shout out for our podcast episode. If anyone's interested, and you should be, because Hannah's got a tremendous story of like going from zero to over 1 million in a very short period of time. Give that episode a listen. Hannah, you're just a master of peer to peer fundraising, and it's really cool to learn from you as part of this process. As we look to wrap, Hannah, are there any like parting words of wisdoms or lessons learned or anything that you'd want to impart from your experience with matching so far?
I would just encourage everyone to do it, to ask somebody to be a matcher, even if it's not a huge dollar amount. If you know someone is going to donate $500 anyway, just say, "Hey, can we do it as a match?" And whether or not they choose to then go out and hype it up to their network, if they do, wonderful. If they don't, okay, at least you can hype it up to your network. And I really think people get very excited to participate in matching campaigns. So I would just encourage everyone to give it a shot.
Yeah. And there's like that moment of, oh gosh, is this going to work? We haven't done this before. And like every one of the case studies that we're doing is showing similar results. So, Hannah, really appreciate you connecting and sharing this experience with us. I think it's just such a great story about like matching isn't just this fundraising tool, it's about a way to actually create community and momentum and rebuild energy and lead to organic activation and make people feel like they're something part of something bigger. So thank you for bringing that to light. If you're interested in talking to us about matching, no sales pitch or anything, we're happy to put together a free matching case statement for you. Feel free to visit our website at matchnice.org, book a demo. We're here to help. And if you're also interested in connecting with Hannah about her experience, I'm sure Hannah, not to put you on the spot there, not that you have anything going on, uh, just to help
Yes,
with that
happy to
as well.
connect. Happy to.
Well, everybody, thank you so much for joining. Absolute pleasure. Hannah, thank you as well. Everyone, be well.
Thanks for having me.